My daughter-in-law called me a danger to myself. The next morning, she showed up at my building with 3 men and a moving truck, claiming she owned my condo now. Step aside, she told the manager. I have papers. But what she didn't know was that I'd been waiting for this moment. Because months earlier, I had already discovered what she was doing, and I'd been recording her every move. That's the morning she walked straight into her own trap. My name is Susan Parker, 67, a retired oceanography teacher from Maine. For years, my life was quiet: books, coffee, the smell of salt air outside my window. My son Ryan was my pride and joy. After losing my husband, he was all I had. He called every Sunday, until he met her. Nicole. Beautiful. Charming. The kind of woman who makes everyone believe she's a gift. But their confidence. Because predators don't always break windows. Sometimes they bring flowers and say, "I'm only trying to help." When someone makes you question your reality, remember this. They're not afraid of your weakness. They're afraid of your awareness. That was my first mistake. Welcome to Life Voices, where family drama turns into late life justice. If you're watching, tell us your city in the comments. We always read them. For the next few weeks, Nicole called me constantly. At first, I thought she was just being kind, the way young women sometimes are with their husbands' mothers when they're still pretending to care. Just checking in, she'd say in that honeyed tone. Did you remember to take your vitamins? Do you need anything from the store? I didn't want to be suspicious. After all, Ryan adored her. He'd never sounded so happy. And if she made him smile, I could tolerate a few patronizing questions. But it wasn't long before her kindness began to feel like surveillance. She'd drop by unannounced with a casserole, then spend half an hour walking around my apartment, touching things, moving things. Once I found my husband's photo turned face down. Another time, my mail was missing. She always had an excuse. "Oh, I must have knocked that over while dusting," she'd say sweetly. "You really shouldn't leave papers lying around, Susan. It's so easy to misplace them at your age." At my age, the phrase echoed in my mind like a bell after service. When I mentioned it to Ryan, he just laughed. "Mom, she's only trying to help. You know how anxious she gets about safety." Safety. That word became her favorite weapon. She insisted I shouldn't climb ladders, cook with gas, or even drive after sunset. One afternoon, when she came over to help with errands, she offered to pick up my prescriptions. Later that night, I realized half the pills were missing from the bottle. I began to feel watched. And worse, doubted. Ryan's tone started changing too. Subtle at first, then unmistakable. "Mom, Nicole says you've been forgetting things lately. Maybe it's time to think about assisted living, somewhere with nurses on hand." Each time, my chest tightened a little more. I wasn't losing my mind. But they were trying to make me think I was. One night, at their wedding reception, I overheard Nicole whispering to a friend near the bar. Her voice was light, playful, but her words were knives. Greater than, once she starts slipping, everything will be ours. Greater than, and if she doesn't start slipping, I'll help her. I stood frozen behind a floral arrangement, my hands trembling around my glass of champagne. That was the moment something inside me shifted. The grief, the confusion, the self-doubt, all burned away, leaving only clarity. From that night on, I stopped being a victim. I began writing everything down, every visit, every phone call, every misplaced object. I installed a small camera inside the living room clock and another near the kitchen cabinet. My friend Margaret, a retired detective from my teaching days, helped me set them up. She taught me how to store the footage, how to protect it so it couldn't be deleted remotely. "You're not paranoid," she told me. "You're careful. That's what women like us have to be." For the first time in months, I slept without fear. Until the morning I found the note. It was taped to my door. A yellow sticky note in neat handwriting. "Please call Dr. Beckett about your cognitive evaluation. Nicole scheduled it for you." My blood ran cold. I hadn't scheduled any evaluation. I called the number out of curiosity. The receptionist confirmed my appointment for Thursday at 10, a memory assessment, ordered by my daughter-in-law. I didn't cancel it. I went. The doctor asked me to draw a clock, recite words backward, recall lists of objects. I played along, calm, polite, pretending confusion at the right moments. At the end, he smiled reassuringly. Well, Mrs. Parker, there are some mild lapses, but nothing serious. Mild lapses. That would be enough for Nicole. Enough to start a file. That night, I sat in my armchair by the window, watching the waves break against the rocks below. I had always loved that sound, the sea reminding me that even when the tide recedes, it always comes back. I decided that if she wanted a war, I'd give her one. I met with my lawyer the next morning. We went through every document, the condo title, my medical power of attorney, my will. He helped me secure digital copies, notarized and encrypted. We also began a slow, quiet process of building my defense. I even played my part for Nicole. I let her think I was slipping, leaving the stove on once, pretending to forget her birthday. It made her bold, and bold people make mistakes. The cameras were recording every smile, every lie, every concerned touch. Then, one Thursday morning, I caught her red-handed. The footage showed her walking into my kitchen while I was on my balcony watering plants. She opened the cabinet, took out a small glass vial, and poured a white powder into my coffee jar. Lorazepam. Enough to keep me groggy, confused, compliant. Margaret helped me send the sample to a lab. When the results came back positive, she wanted to go to the police immediately. But I said no, not yet. Nicole thought she was the predator. I wanted her to feel the thrill of victory before the fall. I wanted her to step fully into the trap. So I smiled when she visited. I thanked her for her help. I even let her rearrange my drawers again. Because I already knew, the next move would be hers. And I would be ready. 2 weeks later, the phone rang just as the morning fog was lifting from the bay. It was the building manager, Mr. Jensen, a kind man in his 70s who still wore pressed shirts and called me, ma'am. Mrs. Parker, he said carefully, your daughter-in-law stopped by again. She wanted access to your unit for what she called a safety inspection. I told her no, of course. I thanked him and hung up, but my hands were shaking. Nicole was getting desperate. That meant she was about to make her move. Margaret and I met at a diner near the harbor that afternoon. She slid into the booth across from me, her eyes sharp and serious. She's escalating, Margaret said. If she's trying to get in without you there, she's preparing to stage something. Maybe a fall, maybe a fire hazard. Anything to make you look incapable. I stirred my coffee slowly. Then we tightened the net. We spent 3 hours going over details, installing one more camera near the entryway, syncing the footage to an encrypted cloud, and drafting a notarized affidavit about Nicole's interference. My lawyer advised patience. Let her act, he said. The more she does, the cleaner the case. So I waited. Each day felt like a performance. Nicole would stop by with her cheerful mask, talking loudly as if addressing a child. Did you remember to take your pills, Susan? Oh dear, look at this mess. You really shouldn't live alone anymore. I'd smile, play along, and let her think she was winning. Inside, I was counting every word, every movement, every opportunity to capture proof. One evening, I caught Ryan alone after dinner. His eyes were tired, his voice distant. Mom, he said gently, Nicole thinks we should look into having someone check on you daily. Just to make sure you're okay. I looked at him across the table, my boy who once built sandcastles with me on this very beach, who used to say, you and me against the world, Mom. Ryan, I asked softly, do you think I'm losing my mind? He hesitated. That hesitation broke something in me. I just want you safe, he said finally. Then trust that I am. He nodded, but I could tell he didn't believe me. Nicole had poisoned more than my coffee, she'd poisoned his faith in me. That night, I sat awake, staring at the glowing blue light of the security monitor. Around midnight, motion appeared, the faint outline of someone unlocking my door. My breath caught. Nicole. She moved quietly, like she'd done it before. She went straight to my bedroom, opened the drawers, then my file cabinet. I zoomed in, she was photographing my documents. Titles, insurance, banking statements. Every asset I owned. I stayed still, silent, watching her greed unfold frame by frame. Then she walked into the kitchen, opened the cabinet, and reached for my coffee jar again. The same one she had tampered with before. This time, she poured the contents of another vial into it, a clear liquid this time, not powder. She wiped the counter with gloved hands and slipped the vial into her purse. When she left, I finally exhaled. The footage was perfect. Clear face, timestamp, full act. Margaret came the next morning to collect the drive. "This is enough to bury her," she said. But I shook my head. "Not yet. She still thinks she's safe. Let her believe it a little longer. She's planning something big, I can feel it." And I was right. 3 days later, Mr. Jensen called again. "Mrs. Parker," he said nervously, "your daughter-in-law came by with a man claiming to be a real estate agent. She said you had agreed to sell your condo." My stomach dropped. Nicole was trying to transfer ownership, likely using forged documents. I called my lawyer immediately. He told me not to confront her directly, just to stay put and document everything. So I did. That night, I made myself a cup of tea instead of coffee. I wasn't taking any chances, and sat by the window, watching the streetlights shimmer across the wet pavement. Somewhere between fear and fury, I found focus. I went over every step of my plan, cameras backed up. Lawyer ready. Police on alert for possible fraud. Neighbor on standby to witness any confrontation. I even left the condo key under the mat, the same fake one I'd had made at the hardware store weeks ago. A decoy for Nicole. When I lay down that night, I whispered to my late husband, "Tomorrow, love. Tomorrow she falls." The morning came gray and cold. I dressed carefully, navy sweater, slacks, nothing fancy. Then I brewed fresh tea, set my phone beside the laptop, and waited. At 9:14 a.m., Jensen called again. His voice was tight. "She's here, Mrs. Parker. With movers this time. She says she owns the condo now." My pulse steadied. "Let her in," I said calmly. I opened my security app. The cameras flickered to life. Nicole strutted through the lobby like she owned it, clutching a folder of fake papers. She smiled at the movers, pointing toward my door. Then she said the words that would destroy her. "She's gone to her cabin. The medication worked. We'll take everything today." I hit record audio. The rest would take care of itself. Because what Nicole didn't know was that the police were already on their way. After I saw her pour the white powder into my coffee jar, I didn't sleep for 3 nights. Not from fear, from rage. All my life I'd been told to stay polite, grateful, quiet. But now I had a woman in my kitchen who wanted to turn me into a ghost of myself, dizzy, confused, dependent. That wasn't going to happen. Each morning, I woke before dawn to the sound of waves outside my window and whispered to myself, "She won't break me." Margaret and I worked methodically. Every visit Nicole made was recorded and stored on 3 different drives, one at my lawyer's office, one in the cloud, and one locked inside the bank's safe deposit box. I bought a pen with a hidden recorder. Whenever she stopped by, to help, I pressed the cap and smiled. "You don't mind if I add a little sweetener, do you?" she'd ask, stirring my coffee. "Go right ahead, dear," I'd say, watching her hands tremble. She didn't realize she was the one under observation now. Her visits became more frequent. She let herself in without knocking, rearranged my drawers, hid my mail. Once I left a copy of my property title on the table, a trap. The next day, it was gone. Good. That meant she'd taken the bait. That evening, I invited Ryan to dinner. I cooked his favorite meal, lit candles he remembered from his childhood. I wanted to look in his eyes and see if any part of him still belonged to me. He arrived late, smelling of cologne that wasn't his. "Mom, you didn't need to go all out," he said, sitting down. I studied him. He couldn't meet my gaze. "Ryan," I asked gently, "have you ever wondered why Nicole is so concerned about my health?" He sighed. "Mom, she's just trying to help. You've been forgetful. You even mixed up your keys last week." I swallowed hard. I didn't mix them up. I was testing if you still trusted your wife more than me. He said nothing, and I knew she had gotten to him. Not with drugs, but with doubt. After he left, I sat alone in the dark. On the table beside me was a flash drive with everything, the footage, the audio, the lab reports. I didn't need to chase justice. Justice was already building itself, quietly, file by file. A few days later, my building manager, Mr. Jensen, called. "Mrs. Parker," he said, "your daughter-in-law came by again. Said she needed access to your condo for an appraisal. She had papers. Next time," I said calmly, "let her in. But call me first." That night, I went through my checklist. Cameras backed up, lawyer alerted, police informed, neighbor ready as witness. I even placed an old suitcase by the door, not to run, but to remind myself that I could leave if I wanted. That I was staying by choice. At sunrise, I left my door unlocked and crossed the street to the cafe opposite my building. I took the corner seat by the window and waited. The coffee grew cold as the hours passed. Then a black sedan pulled up. Nicole stepped out in a cream-colored coat, folder in hand, followed by two men in moving uniforms. She looked radiant, confident, the queen of her own con. From my table, I watched her talk to Jensen, show him the documents. He looked uncertain, then nodded. They disappeared inside. I opened my phone and tapped the live feed. The screen flickered, my living room came into view. Nicole walked in like she owned the place. Start with the bedroom, she told the movers. The antiques are worth more than she knows. My stomach clenched, but I stayed still. The camera caught everything, her voice, her arrogance, her crime. She'll thank me one day, she added with a laugh. She's not safe alone. We're just helping the process along. I hit record. Margaret's voice came through my earpiece, calm and steady. Let her keep talking. Every word is gold. Nicole checked her phone. Yes, she said. The doctor signed off. The paperwork's ready. Once she's declared incompetent, we can finalize the transfer. Transfer. My home. My life. She bent down to pick up something from under the mat, the fake key I'd left there a week earlier. She held it up to the light, smiling. Perfect, she murmured. Everything's under control. I glanced at my phone. A new message appeared from my lawyer, police notified. Stand by. The air in the cafe felt suddenly too thin. I took one slow breath, then another. Nicole thought she was playing chess. She didn't realize the board had already been flipped. Through the glass, I watched blue and red lights turn the street into a mirror of justice. I didn't move. Not yet. In my pocket, my phone buzzed again. Margaret's voice, low but triumphant. They're here. I closed my eyes and whispered, let her in, Mr. Jensen. Let her all the way in. Because when the door finally opened, it wouldn't be hers anymore. It would be mine. The sirens echoed down the quiet street, bouncing off the glass and concrete of my building. From the cafe window, I watched blue and red lights flash across Nicole's perfect face as she turned toward the sound. Her hand froze midair, still clutching my stolen key. Then came the pounding on my door. Police. Open up. Through the live feed, I saw her panic bloom. This is a mistake, she cried. This condo belongs to me. The officers entered anyway. Calm. Professional. They asked her name, her reason for being there. My mother-in-law is unfit, she said quickly, waving her forged papers. I have power of attorney. Not according to these records, one of them replied. He held up a copy of my official documents, the ones my lawyer had filed that morning. You've been under investigation for fraud and attempted poisoning, Mrs. Parker. Her face drained of color. That's insane. She's delusional. She can't even remember. The officer cut her off. Ma'am, everything you've done today has been recorded. We have footage, audio, and lab tests. You'll need to come with us. From my seat across the street, I whispered, now, and stood. By the time I crossed the lobby, the officers were leading her out in handcuffs. The movers stood awkwardly beside their truck, realizing they'd been part of a crime scene. Nicole's eyes found mine through the glass doors, wide, furious, desperate. You set me up, she screamed as they pulled her toward the patrol car. I stepped closer until we were only a few feet apart, separated by the lobby's glass. No, Nicole, I said softly. You set yourself up. Mr. Jensen, bless him, looked ready to faint. Mrs. Parker, are you all right? I'm fine, I said. And for the first time in a long while, it was true. The following hours blurred into statements, signatures, and quiet congratulations from detectives who couldn't hide their admiration. One of them, a young woman, shook my hand and said, "You played her better than we ever could." I smiled. Experience helps. Later that evening, I sat alone in my living room. The house felt strangely empty without the tension that had haunted it for months. My coffee jar sat on the counter, still sealed in an evidence bag. The cameras were unplugged. Silence settled like a blessing. At 9, Ryan knocked on the door. His eyes were red. Mom, he whispered, I saw the footage. I nodded. She told me you were losing your memory. She said you accused me of stealing. I believed her. I reached out, placing my hand on his. You believed the person who spoke loudest. That doesn't make you bad, Ryan. It just means you forgot who I am. He broke down then, the way grown men only do when shame finally cracks open. I let him cry. When he lifted his head, his voice trembled. How did you stay so calm through all this? Because she thought I was weak, I said. And that's the most powerful disguise a woman can wear. Nicole's trial was swift. The footage spoke for itself, her voice saying, the medication worked. We'll take everything today. Even her lawyer stopped objecting halfway through. She was convicted of fraud, identity theft, and attempted manslaughter. 9 years in prison. I didn't attend the sentencing. I didn't need to. Watching her world collapse in my doorway had been enough. Weeks passed. I sold the condo and bought a small cottage near the sea, a place untouched by her shadow. The mornings there are my favorite: salt air, the sound of gulls, coffee steaming in my hands as the waves roll in. Sometimes Ryan visits. He fixes things that don't need fixing: door hinges, cabinet handles, light bulbs. I let him. It's his way of making amends. Forgiveness, like the tide, comes in slowly. Margaret still calls me Agent Parker. She insists I should give lectures on elder safety, and maybe one day I will. For now, I host small gatherings at the library: widows, retirees, women who've been told they're too old to start over. We drink tea, share stories, and remind each other that quiet doesn't mean powerless. Every time someone asks what lesson I learned, I say this. When someone makes you question your sanity, it's usually because they're terrified of your clarity. Before I go to bed each night, I check the locks, old habit. On my bookshelf sits one of the hidden cameras, unplugged, a small black square that once saved my life. I keep it there not out of fear, but gratitude. A reminder that truth, once seen, can't be unseen. Nicole's letters started arriving a few months ago, 3 in total. Apologies written in perfect cursive, claiming she's found God, and realizes her mistakes. I never replied. Some words don't deserve an audience. The ocean outside whispers like an old friend. Sometimes, when the sun sets just right, I imagine my husband sitting beside me again, proud, peaceful. I raise my cup to him and smile. Because the woman Nicole tried to erase is gone. And the one who replaced her? She's unstoppable. Months have passed since that morning, yet I still wake up grateful. Grateful for peace, for sunlight through the curtains, for the sound of the ocean instead of sirens. Ryan visits often now. We talk like two people learning each other again, carefully, honestly. Forgiveness is slow, but it's coming. Your truth is your power. Guard it fiercely. And tell me, have you ever been made to doubt your own strength? Share your story below, and follow for more women who refuse to disappear. If this story hit you somewhere deep, don't just scroll away. Subscribe so you don't miss the next voice that refuses to stay silent. And tell me in the comments, would you have spoken up, or stayed quiet to keep the peace? Your words might give courage to someone who's afraid to act right now. Let's make silence impossible, together.